New World fans are now turning against Amazon, and here's why. You may have seen recently that the Steam reviews have gone from generally positive to mixed. And you might think, well, that's because of the old issues, you know, like exploits and lag and duping and stuff like that. But I don't actually think that is the case here. And it's not even because of the new duping bug, for example. No, this is actually because Amazon Game Studios are losing touch with its core player base. Obviously, since New World has been released, a lot of players have stopped playing, but that is pretty normal and completely expected. Sure, I imagine that this was hastened in a sense because of the lag, the exploits, etc. But now Amazon are really starting to frustrate the core player base who actually want to stick with the game for a long time. Now, I made a video a couple of days ago talking about how Amazon basically are punishing casuals by fixing their mistakes. Essentially, they let the hardcore players utilize everything that they have now changed, but that's actually meaning that the casuals or new players who are coming after now aren't going to get the same sort of advantages. They basically made crafting harder, and they made farming your high watermark gear score harder in elite areas. But this is just one thing that I think is causing friction. Part of the issue is now trust. They made the changes to these elite point of interest without actually documenting them in the patch, and nor were they on the PTR, I believe. Now, they have said that this was an accident, and I am inclined to believe them. You know, never assigned to malice, which can be more easily attributed to incompetence, and I don't want to say incompetence because that's a bit of a harsh phrase, but, you know, a mistake, I guess you could argue, is incompetence. But then not including a change which I think most people could see would be essentially universally unpopular. There's some people who actually don't mind it, but most people don't like it. Including this change without actually saying anything does create that little seed of doubt in people's minds, wondering, was it deliberate? Maybe they deliberately didn't put that in the patch notes because they knew people would kick off. And it's hard to be confident either way. I'm personally going to err on the side that I think it was just a mistake, but obviously if they keep doing stuff like that, then we will obviously maybe readdress that issue. And now Steam reviews, as I said, have gone to mixed. This has led to a couple of statements by Amazon, one of them by Berserker Mike, and I'm going to read this, and he says, recently changes were made to the elite point of interest in the end game zones, and it is clear to us that proper context wasn't delivered on why those changes were made. There was no context. You didn't put this in the patch notes, so it's hard to give proper context when there is no context in the first place. And the context is pretty sort of obvious, right? You want to increase the variety of the end game because you think people are getting their high watermark gear score a little bit too easily through these endgame elite areas. And fixing that in any kind of way actually seems reasonable. Unfortunately, the way that they've gone about it essentially hurts the casual players or new players coming, and the people who were like level 60 early and doing this earlier have got the rewards from it. But essentially, you want to increase the variety of the end game. Well, so do all the players. We all want variety. We all want to be able to do what we want to do and get rewarded for that. And then they list some content which they actually want the variety to include. But unfortunately, a lot of players can't actually participate in the content that they list. Wars and invasions are really like server dependent, and whether or not you're in a company that is one of the big companies who are actually involved in that. Outpost Rush is a completely different matter because some players literally can't play because there are no games of it on their server because there's not enough population. You've not merged the servers yet, Amazon. And even on a big server like mine, actually, the queues are getting longer and longer even at peak times. And then they talk about expeditions. Yes, they made expedition keys a little bit easier to make, but quite frankly, I think we can all see that it's just not enough. And it makes sense because expeditions are a great way of getting your gear score up for sure, because I think the last boss at the end of it, you are guaranteed to get an increase in your gear score. But the keys take hours and hours to get, and the cost of them are in the thousands. It's really generally not worth it for most players to do it at least before they get the gear score up to something like 590, if not even higher. I'm not going to talk about the solution here to expeditions, but they really need to make them so they're actually a core part of the game loop, and that it's a choice to go into them, and it's not a choice that is like, oh, actually I'm going to lose a lot just to get in it. Just let people do it for free. Make a system that lets you get in it every couple of days. I don't know, but these keys are very awkward, and you seem to know that the keys are a little bit awkward, but you're not really doing anything quickly. So a lot of the content that they want you to do, some of you can't reasonably do that, and it's like they don't necessarily address that as a part of the problem. And then they go ahead and nerf one of the ways of getting your gear score up relatively easily. And yeah, maybe people were getting it too easily, and yes, maybe it was going too quickly. And then Amazon were like, well, we're not happy with this, so we're going to nerf it. But unfortunately, just slowing down people getting their gear score up like that essentially highlights how bad the high watermark gear score system is. It's not a fun, enjoyable mechanic, and I don't think it has any place in New World. It's too grindy and it's not very fun, and now you've made it more obvious to more people that they have to just grind it out. It's not fun and you're making it harder. And then we spoke about how they're going to make expedition keys a little bit easier, but you know what's actually the most frustrating part about this? We can expect these changes in the coming months. Amazon, I'm not sure you have that long. So the main issue really is the core gameplay design, and now that you're fixing things when they should have really been fixed at game launch, you're actually hurting the kind of players you don't really want to hurt. Now, your problem with that is that the genie's already out of the bottle, so to speak. You can't go back and fix it. Well, you can go back and fix it, but you are literally detrimenting some of your players. I don't know if that is a phrase or a word, I just used it, so will you go in with it? So the main issues are these like game concepts, right? But we're also back to having laggy wars. We're back to having the game balance not be particularly great. Like, the Great Axe is still out there in full swing, pun intended. Now, I actually rock the Great Axe, and to me it sort of seems like mages might need a buff, because like dex weapons and Great Axe Warhammer are pretty strong, but then it feels like mages are like right at the bottom of the barrel, so I would maybe buff them up or turn down the other two. Either way, we can live with these kind of issues because we know they're temporary, but it's hard to look past essentially the game being made less fun and punishing the casual player base. Like, we can't really just go like, that's fine, let's move on with our day and enjoy the game. If you keep doing stuff like that, you're going to strongly lose your player base, and the reactions, if you can see, is going to be overwhelmingly negative. Amazon necessarily aren't changing things in the right way, and things are not going in the right direction, and the core player base can feel it. Like this video if you like me talking about it. I appreciate I'm making quite a few negative videos at the minute, but that's just the way I feel, so I'm going to have to go with it. If you enjoyed this video though, do press like. If you're interested in more New World content, then do subscribe. Goodbye.